Hello and welcome to Your Property Empire. I'm Chris Gray. On tonight's show, what difference does it make to your property price if your home has been professionally prepared with an interior designer? Is it worth using an interior designer if you're simply renting your property out? And is interior design something that you can do yourself, or do you need to outsource to a professional? Well, joining me tonight to comment on our stories is Karina Berry from interior design website Designbox. And as usual, we've got Charles Tarbey, chairman and owner of Century 21 Australasia. So, Karina, is interior design important to the average Australian, or should it be?
I think it absolutely is. You know, the Australians thrive on their home being the hub and the soul of who they are. Interior design really just encapsulates that, so it's the look and feel of a home. And really, that's what everyone dreams of, to have that dream space. So interior design is effectively that, and we all want that dream home.
Now, I guess for a lot of people then, when they've been sitting in their same home for 5 or 10 years, they don't realise how bad it can get, or maybe even for our grandparents, they've been in there 40 or 50 years. I guess, just purely interior design, can it add value to a property? And while you're talking, we might bring up some before pictures and then some after pictures after that to see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interior design's imperative, especially when getting to that phase of selling a property. You know, it's basic things like looking at the demographic of where your home is, and then redesigning that space to obviously broaden your appeal to that market. So, you know, obviously we all become a bit blind to the space that we live in. And sometimes it needs a helping hand to give the best possible value when looking at a resale.
And so again, looking at these pictures, I mean, the ones before, it was just a classic mess that suddenly a TV crew's come into your house. And then these ones, obviously, the books are all sitting out and the flowers and everything else.
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's those finishing touches that we may not do every day, but certainly when looking at a sale of a property, we're there to sell the dream. So, you know, it's really important to make sure that you're showing that space to its best potential for those, you know, up-and-coming buyers. So. And
who better to ask than Charles Tarbey? Does it make a difference? Could you sell that bit of a dump beforehand?
There is a negative side to it. And the negative side is that when you decorate a home for somebody to sell, they sometimes want to keep it. And that's the other side. I've seen that happen before.
That's when you can sell the package for another few $100,000 to keep the furniture.
They can keep it for a good price.
They change. It is. It's like that. But people, it's really amazing how we get things ready to sell, but we don't get it to that standard when we're living there. And does it make a difference? Absolutely. The number of homes that I've opened up over the years and sold, you think, you walk in, you think, oh my God, you know, you go through the process with people, you talk about what they should or shouldn't do. And, you know, some people have a very different idea on what presentation should be compared to others. And I think all it does is, I think we've used the analogy before, if you've got two brand new cars sitting alongside each other and one of them's clean, the other one's absolutely filthy dirty, the one that's clean just looks so much nicer. It just doesn't matter why. Because
I guess so much in real estate, people talk about the packages that maybe cost 5 or 10 grand to style a home. And a lot of people, the classic Australian, said, no, I'll save that 5 or 10 grand, but that money can go so far.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I personally just sold my home on the Northern Beaches, and even though I thought the home was well presented, we definitely invested. We invested around the 20 grand mark just to redo carpets and just to bring it back to kind of a plain shell, so anyone would be able to put their touches on it when they moved in. And, you know, we definitely saw that money come back tenfold. So.
Well, I always remember we try to educate sellers to leave a home when we're showing it. And the main reason is that sometimes sellers feel that the agent's not doing the right job or whatever, and they'll interfere. And part of that interference is also in the way a home is presented, not just from a verbal point of view. So it would make it easier. I think it becomes a cost situation. How do you make the average, very, very average home cost-effectively upgrade it to an image? I mean, with a more established home, with a higher price tag, you can spend more money. And I think it's trying to find that balance.
Yeah.
If every home I listed for sale or every property I put up for rent was presented nicely, my role would be almost redundant to some degree.
Funny that, hey, Charles?
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there trying to make that happen.
We won't even go there. Now, I would normally have thought that for a rental it wouldn't really matter, but obviously with the invent of Airbnb, that could be different. So maybe, again, while you're answering that, we'll bring up some other pictures of a rental property as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess there's two rental markets now. There's our traditional rental market, but now we have this, you know, Airbnb, this home sharing environment. This is a project that we worked on for a client. This is actually their holiday home but they're there for 10% of the year. So they wanted to be able to also rent this space out for that period. For a small investment, they had us come in as interior designers to fit out that to suit their personal lifestyle, but also to look at the demographic and the profile of people that they wanted to rent the space. And we brought that to life. I mean, they've effectively seen their per night price go up by $200 a night, and their booking dates have gone up by 50%. So their return is almost instant. Over the next 12 months, they will remake that money back. And they also now have a space that they can use as a family getaway as well.
Because again, on the website, if we had those before pictures of all the kind of the toys hanging around,
yeah,
it's just no appeal. You'd always say, oh, no, I'd rather stay in a hotel. But a lot of these rentals, what they're getting for a night's price is almost what they'll get on a permanent rental for a whole week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. So.
Are you seeing it disrupt your market as well? Because you're normally into the more long-term rentals.
Well, we are. But as you know, I'm involved in a business that has
in a lot of bars, I know, Charles.
that has accommodation and involved in it. And yes, you watch the prices of say a small one-bedroom cabin versus a three-bedroom deluxe villa, and even an old three-bedroom villa compared to the new ones, how they've been renovated and wherever else. The people want to stay in those. They prefer. Oh, you'll always get people that don't want to pay that price, but I think the majority of people, if you have to be competitive, will pay the money to stay somewhere nicer.
Now, Karina, I know there's probably a lot of, and I'm sure males as well as females, that think they're the best designer around town.
Yeah.
I guess, what is the main benefits of using a professional service versus trying to do it yourself?
Yeah, look, I think the Australians are definitely still hands-on and want to do it themselves, but we're fastly becoming very time poor. People, yes, can bring all of that together themselves, but being the professionals, we can do it at a faster pace. We can bring things in on budget, which is definitely where people fall astray sometimes. They know what they love, they know the pieces that they want to get, but they can't allocate their budget correctly to create a full solution. So the bonus is that, you know, we can sift through all of the options in the marketplace and most certainly give the clients the best option to fit their budget, to give them a full solution, which is most important. People often, when they try and do it themselves, they get 50% or 60% of the way. They've either misspent their dollars somewhere, or they've run out of steam and energy and time. So using a professional, like in any field, it just gets the job done, essentially.
You get a pricing benefit too, because you're doing this all the time, and
absolutely
that could be an advantage to some.
You know, as professionals, I mean, at Designbox we pass on all of our trade exclusive discounts to our clients, so that budget of 10 grand all of a sudden almost becomes $15,000 in perspective. Yeah. So, you know, you definitely get more bang for your buck per se.
And I guess if you've seen 100 lounges and you've seen what light does to it, or being by the beach, or practicalities and things like that, you're going to know straight away, because where something, maybe you've made a mistake before, you can learn from that mistake. Whereas if people, it's like, I guess, people selling houses, if they only do it once every 7 years versus they've done 100, they wouldn't know the consequences.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So very much in for hiring the professionals, because do people try and style the home themselves?
It's just that cost issue. For some homes, they often don't have enough money to do advertising. So it's really trying to balance it. And maybe you're getting a package that could suit somebody in an average home. If that could be achieved, that would really help a great deal.
Now, Karina, tell us a bit about Designbox, because your website, you're doing something slightly different and almost giving them an online version as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Charles, that's what we're trying to do, definitely making interior design affordable and accessible. So we're an online solution which really allows our costs to come down. So we're looking at $299, $399 per room to get a full design solution. So the benefits to being online is obviously saving all that face-to-face. We can reduce our timings. Also just the accessibility. Anyone across Australia can have access to top designers. You don't need to be in the city, or you can also manage that design process collaboratively with your designer within your time frame. So, you know, look at your designs and work through your design process on the bus, or, you know, while you're feeding the kids, or, you know, you can work it around your needs and your lifestyle. So our goal is definitely to make it accessible and affordable as well, especially by handing over those exclusive industry discounts that we spoke about.
Sounds good.
There you are.
Solution for everyone. Now, Charles, there's a lot happening in the market at the moment. APRA and the banks and everyone causing chaos. Is it hitting the clearance rates?
I think it is. Not the clearance rates so much. I think the clearance rates are still there because the stock levels are still balancing out. But there's certainly a lot less people turning up at auctions or open for inspection. So there is a change. There is a change out there. I'm certainly noticing it, and I spoke to Tom earlier on, and he'll mention it later on, no doubt, and that's changing. But the clearance rates are 78.1% nationally, and this time last year was 66.6%. So still so much better, and Sydney came in at 80.7%, followed by Melbourne at 80.6% itself. And Canberra was in at 78.3%. So there's still really healthy auction clearance rates right across the country. Your Perth market's still struggling a little bit, and your Brisbane market's average in terms of auction clearance rates.
And how about homes advertised for sale?
Negative again, but only slightly negative, so 0.83% down over this time last week. So it's only modest change. So there's still well over 100,000 homes on the market compared to going back this time last year. It's starting to improve a little bit, and I think there'll be a supply of stock, particularly with the apartment complexes starting to move in where people may not be able to complete, and I think we'll start to see a whole new level of stock.
And are you seeing any of that at the moment? Because, I mean, that's the scare in the market from all the newspapers,
banks, yeah, well, you talk about APRA and the changes, and you talk about the banks and their changes, and then you think about somebody coming in to settle and the LVR might be lowered, or the interest rate might be raised, and things are going to change for some people. There's no doubt in my mind.
But do you see it actually happening right at this instant? Because I guess that's the scare, and that's what they're telling us.
The one that you're probably going to see first will be the overseas buyers, because the changes in their countries will impact, and you're not going to chase somebody. How are you going to find them in the true sense? So I think that'll be the start.
I'm off to China on Sunday, so I'll see if I can find any.
I'll give you some names.
Sounds good.
See if we can find them.
What about rental price movements?
Not much there, Chris. The last couple of weeks has been very steady, and I think we'll see some rises in the Sydney market and Melbourne market because of the vacancy rates, and that's the best indicator. When we look at the vacancy rates, they tell me exactly what's going on in the marketplace, and they tell me whether an investor should be around there or not.
And so what's happening with the vacancy rates?
Well, thank you for asking.
I thought you were going to carry on anyway.
No, thank you for asking. The vacancy rates in Sydney, fantastic, a 0.54% vacancy rate. That has just been astonishing. Melbourne came in at 1.50, but I'm really, really happy to see Perth the last couple of weeks is coming back. It was always in the 10s for a while. It came back last week under 10. This week it's under 9 at 8.47% vacancy rate. So the average is 3.5 for those three capital cities. So I'm really happy about that for the Perth market especially.
Now, before we let you go, we better mention unfortunate floods in Queensland.
Yes.
Anything that either renters or sellers or homeowners should be doing?
There's not much that can be done now. They've just got to assess the damage. I spoke to our office in Bowen, which was impacted the most. They were even more concerned about their own home, which was near the water. And I haven't heard back whether that disappeared, but a lot of people have lost their homes. I think it's going to be quite a difficult time for a lot of people for quite some time to come, Chris.
And again, whether it's banks or real estate agents, the main advice normally is just ask for advice early.
It is, and the insurance companies are going to have a battle, and there'll be a lot of people that didn't have insurance too. So it's going to be quite a tragedy. It's going to take some time for people to get through.
Well, fingers crossed if you're one of those affected. Yeah. Well, join us after the break. We'll be talking more about interior design and speaking to Tom Panos. We'll be back soon.
Life taught me to always have a clear vision. Realize timing is key. Be willing to push yourself. Trust technology to support you. But make sure you stay in control. And remember, the biggest competitor is yourself.
The market's tough, but it's not impossible. So we're helping people find different ways in.
Some people buying their dream home before they're even selling the existing property.
Some people are using the equity in their home to renovate instead of moving.
Find your path with our dedicated home lending specialists. With CommBank, you can.
We're leaving our generation to join one that's moving us forward.
Where our garage business can go global.
A new generation where it's easy to pass on our skills.
Where our crazy ideas become crazy reality.
We're doing things differently, seeing things differently, and we're just getting started. It's time for a new generation. It's time for Gen MBN.
It takes a lot to create new life. Elevate has more folic acid and iron than any other pregnancy multivitamin. Folic acid is clinically proven to reduce the risk of neural tube defects. But it takes time to build up your nutrient levels. So you should start taking Elevate before you start trying. Take the first step for a healthy baby with Elevate, Australia's #1 pregnancy multivitamin, with you every step.
If your goal is to retire right, AMP can help with expert advice to make the most of the super changes before July 1. Visit amp.com.au/superchanges.
The government failed to pass its full company tax plan, leaving big business calling for further reform. But what is the way forward on tax reform? I ask Elizabeth Proust from the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Join me, Sky News Business.
Welcome back to Your Property Empire. Well, joining me on the show tonight is Karina Berry from interior design website Designbox, and we've just been joined by Tom Panos, Head of Real Estate Advertising at News Corp. Now, Karina, the 5 hacks. We want to get into interior design. Start us off with number 1. What should we be doing?
Yeah, I guess the fundamental one to start with is creating a really strong brief. So the brief would really be an initial vision of what you want the space or home to be, writing that down on paper or doodling it down. Next would be then really analysing the people who live in the space or the profile of the people that you would like to rent the space. So their likes, their lifestyles, how you want the space to be used. So really profiling everyone within that. Then also going through the must-haves for your home. So it may be underfloor heating, it may be air conditioning, verandas, whatever it may be. That will become kind of your top hero kind of sectors for your budget. So that's where your allocations will go primary there.
And is this when it's worth bringing the real estate agent or the property manager in? Because surely, as we were saying before, is a lot of people think that they like a certain type of thing, but the real estate agent might say, hey, the whole market's changed. If you're trying to sell to a certain person, you need something else. And surely you'd see that kind of stuff, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's actually good to try and think like the consumer and not think like yourself when you're selling, because you aren't buying it, someone else is buying it. So I think what you've got to do is let go of your addiction to have the thing that you want and keep thinking, if 100 people came through this property, what would most of them want to see? And I think that's where an agent can give a bit of insight.
Yeah, and that's obviously where getting a professional, the interior designers in, they can really look at that space unemotionally and assess how they can best present the areas that are already existing or redo the areas to, you know, give more versatility to the buyers. So show them how it can be used in a better way.
Yeah. So if Tom wants all his Greek columns outside and someone else wants their little gnomes and the rest of it, this is where an agent's going to say, well, as much as I do enjoy that kind of stuff, maybe you need to look in a different area.
Oh, well, what you'll find with Greek people is that the column of dollars matters more than the column of architecture, so they're quite open to that.
And that's what you've just got to point out, is are you there to make something beautiful for you when you've sold it, or you want to try and make some more money?
Correct.
Absolutely.
OK, how about number 2?
Yeah, so I guess it'd be really then analysing your budget and then looking at all the specifications that you could do to fit out the property to gain the most amount of money. So that's obviously looking at the demographic, the lifestyle, and fitting out that property with all of the right finishes and styles. So really it's looking at the style. So what is it, a coastal property? Is it a inner city for professionals? So assessing that style and really honing in on both the finishes of the home and also the way that you style it for presenting to sale. So style's a really big thing, really, you know, linking with the personality of the demographic.
So, Tom, I guess they're just like people can under or over-capitalise on a renovation. I guess the same things from a style perspective.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a $10 million home, you can't be putting cheap IKEA-type stuff in, for instance.
Yeah, you can't do that, Chris. And on the issue of making sure that you meet the demographic, I remember auctioning a property in Bankstown that had a Balinese style transformation done to it, and it was quite good. But the buyers that were coming through the property were not seeing it in the eyes that the vendor was when they actually did it. I mean, that probably would have been something good, maybe towards the beaches in the eastern suburbs, maybe, or even potentially in the north. So I think whatever you do, you've got to take into account who's going to most likely buy this property, and how do I get that person most emotionally involved? You know, some of the worst decisions are made by the most creative types, because the creative person sometimes goes off and does their own thing, and they're absolutely obsessed that everyone sees the world the way that they see it. You know, they're a little bit myopic in their thinking. You'd probably see that.
Well, it's definitely making it functional. So you know, it is really looking at the lifestyle of those areas and saying, you know, how can we create that dream indoor-outdoor experience? Our dollars might be best spent just putting bifold doors in, opening the back, and reducing our money on the styling to make sure that we're offering a property to what people need and want for that area. So, you know, really listening, as you said, to the potential buyers as well.
Yeah. Now, are there any kind of steps that you should take before you actually start purchasing all the things?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we all can go out and get a little bit loved when we walk into somewhere and go, wow, I'm just going to buy it. It doesn't normally fit or work. So really breaking down and having a really detailed shopping list for each of your space and making sure that you stick to that and allocating strict budgets for each of those items. So that allows you then to confidently go out and shop if that's what you're doing personally, and make sure that you don't go outside of those comfort zones. So you want to keep to your budget, keep to your style, and ensure that the items are also going to fit and complement the space that you're styling.
Now, just like with the renovation, you're trying to keep to the budget or the brief. How important is that? And I guess at the same time, we've got some interior pictures to bring up at the same time.
Sure. Look, budget's essential. We can all have a great vision of what we want a space to be, but at the end of the day, if you run out of money, you can't achieve these end solutions. So it really is making sure that you spend dollars in the right places to give the best possible representation of that property. And generally, the fundamental things are to make sure, you know, the basics, that the property is clean, it has a neutral palette, so it's, you know, can definitely be liked by an open audience, and also keeping styling not too over the top. You know, it wants it to have personality, but ensuring that it still feels like someone can put their personal touch on it as well.
Now, Tom, you obviously see a lot of people come through the properties and you see the auctions happen. Is there quite often one person that you think is in the audience, say, be it the husband, the wife or the kids, that maybe you need to appeal to more, for instance? Who wears the trousers?
This is a very...
delicate answer.
I can answer.
But generally speaking, I find that females in the auctions that I'm involved with, you can tell are drivers in the decision-making process.
Yeah.
I don't know what...
They generally just become emotionally attached. So, you know, that styling and really linking your property to, you know, the potential buyer, they want to walk in and feel that that's their dream space. So they feel connected, they can feel warmth, it feels like a home that they can either, you know, start a family or bring their family up in. It's definitely emotional, and that's where the women come into play and generally drive the dollars.
Wonderful, very good. Well, Tom, let's jump to one of your properties that you got on the week, and we can check out some of the pictures and see how well they've interior designed it.
Yeah.
Time.
Ooh,
Let's
far away.
Let's have a look at 2 Castleton Street in Hamilton in Queensland. It is presented to you by Matt Lancashire from Ray White New Farm, who I would probably say he's probably one of the best in the country in marketing of real estate. He's just got this incredible knack. He's actually one of the biggest clients of News Corporation, realestate.com.au, and this property was featured in the Courier Mail. It's on a big block of land. You probably can't see that there, but 1,382 square metres in one of the Brisbane's most exclusive properties. It's got a 25-metre lap pool. It's got a 2-lane bowling alley, as you can see. Formal dining, oversized floor plan. It is one of the finest examples of a grand family home in this great suburb in Hamilton. So if you just look at that there, it's just a gorgeous
sports family, isn't it?
Yeah, a gorgeous home there. Let me just give you that price tag. It's actually I don't have a price on it, so there's potentially it could be by auction. No, I think it's by sale by negotiation, so I don't have a price tag on it there. I can tell you that the rental guide is around $4,900 to $5,000. So if you want to pursue that property, I would suggest that you actually look it up on realestate.com.au or the Courier Mail. Actually ring up Matt Lancashire from Ray White New Farm, and he'll give you more details on it.
Wonderful. Looks like a great property there. Question for you this week, Tom, is what do you think about people that price high when they're selling, and then they always say, well, maybe I can always come down in price?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a safe strategy that what you'll do is go high and then reduce it if you don't get your price. The problem, of course, is you never get a second chance at making a good first impression. And what actually happens is that when you put a property on the market, there is a set of buyers that have been sitting there looking at real estate, and they're good qualified buyers. And a new property comes on and they judge it for what it is, which is an overpriced property because the owner said, I'll put it at a higher figure. So they discount that property. And then that property stays on the market for a period of time where you would have had your best audience that first few weeks. And people begin to realise that this property is becoming stale because it's not selling. So it actually ends up becoming a counterproductive strategy. The ideal thing is to either auction it, or if you don't auction it and you're in a non-auction market, that you actually price it at a level that's going to generate a lot of interest, and then have people fight over it, and then get them to put competitive bids, because I know competition is what drives the share market up. It's the same with real estate. So that's the smart thing to do. Now, if you price it too high...
We're going to have to run, Tom. I know you've got your passion, but we've got to run. Thanks for your answers.
Thank you so much.
Tom Panos, Karina, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank
Thanks for joining us as well at home. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Chris Gray. Good night.
The information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Guests appearing on the program may have commercial arrangements with some of the companies mentioned. Before making any investment, insurance or financial planning decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.